Specifically in your book, Bounce Back Ability Factor, you identify that in the environment, there could be certain things that is leading to burnout. So if you could tell us what are the characteristics of the environment that can lead to burnout, because it might not be what the person is doing on
Right.
their own part. It might be
Right.
something within the environment.
Yes, and that's another thing that has grown a lot since I wrote that first book, and which is why the second book I actually have to write today after we finish, do some writing today after we finish. But right now, from what I've gathered over the past 10 years total, is that burnout arises due to chronic stress. Okay, cool. Then the question becomes, and the question that people aren't asking is, why are we experiencing chronic stress? And why are some people in some environments not experiencing chronic stress? So I think that we have to start. Somebody once asked me, if you are going to really work on preventing burnout, what would you do? I said, well, I would treat parents better so they could treat children better. Because the way we react to stress, a lot of it is determined in our childhood. Some of it is genetic, some of it isn't, right? But if we know that the way when a child's brain is developing, particular stress responses will be engaged more than others, and typical coping responses will be engaged more than others, there are loads of things that can happen in your environment during your childhood that are not your fault, that can lead to you being having a level of chronic stress that you don't even notice. You don't know that it's chronic stress because it feels normal to you, because your household was either not chaotic, what was chaotic, or not supportive or abusive in some way, shape, or form, even in the lightest way. We don't have to be talking about extreme situations here for the brain development to shift. So I think we have to start first with that. How your particular brain and body respond to stress is determined by genetics, culture, and your history. So that's something that none of us are controlling that. That's just something that's happening to us, kind of, right? So that's one piece of the puzzle. If we're talking about environment as a place, just as a general world, then we have to look at everything from the quality of air to the quality of lighting to the beauty that we surround ourselves with, if we notice it, if we don't, if we have access to walking paths, if everything is driving distance. All of those things in our environment can either enhance chronic stress in our life or soothe it out a little bit. We buffer it, we say in my business, or buffer out chronic stress a little bit. The more access you have to walkable green spaces, the more buffered out your stress response will be. So there's another part of the environment. And then you have environment and in the way of culture. And you asked about burnout culture before.
Yeah.
Burnout does not happen just in the United States, but I am not an expert on all world's cultures. I'm not even an expert on United States culture, to be fair. Culture is not my expertise. However, the cultural values that drive things in the United States, especially in the workforce, 2 of the top 10 are hard work and individualism, which you mentioned earlier. If we're saying that your work is only valuable if it's difficult and if you do it alone, well, these are burnout drivers. These are chronic stress drivers, right? Because another thing that buffers chronic stress is strong social connection, which is why in the Harvard Business Review studies that came out this past year, that 85-year study, longevity study, what makes us healthiest most in long life is social connection, social networks, right? So social networks is a chronic stress buffer. And if you're saying, well, you're not valuable unless you do it alone, that's the message we get. Well, that's really dangerous for everybody. And again, that's propaganda that you absorb your whole life. You didn't create that. You didn't do that. That's just what you're born in if you're born here. Yeah. So there's a lot. And then there's the workplace and there's, health behavior. So there's lots of other things. But I just want people to have a wider picture of why particular people might be in a chronic stress state differently than others. They have a different history. They have different environmental exposure. They have different community connections. All of that is really important.